It's an ugly stream, a meta stream, a stream hostile to narrative play as we know it. So like I said, the link to the metadata is down in the description below. The guy that puts all this stuff together is a chap called JCMS85, and he has a Patreon, and I strongly suggest that you check it out. And if you like this kind of content and you like this kind of data, then go and take a look at his page. I'm not telling you, I'm not putting a gun to your head. I'm just saying if you like it, then strongly consider supporting. Because I wouldn't be able to do it. He does the data, and myself and many other content creators use this data, and we chat bollocks about it. But really, we wouldn't be able to do that without him. So big thank you to JCMS. He is an officer and a gentleman. He's a good lad. Not a great week to be an Imperial Knight player. I'm not going to lie. This is definitely just... It's a bit of a dip. It's a bit of a dip. Obviously, the average is 45%. So them dropping down 6% in one go is probably a slightly anomalous result. We have seen Knights in a downward trend for a while now, and they've been slowly falling down, and then suddenly they've gone. Now, do I expect Imperial Knights to be at the bottom every single week? No, not necessarily. I think they'll go up and down a little bit. But do I think Imperial Knights are a bottom tier faction? Do I think they're a bad faction right now? Yes. I'm sorry to say, but I think Imperial Knights they came out the gates fucking running like they were like a greyhound at a race. They were thrashing in their cage at the beginning of 10th edition, and now their baby knights aren't as good as Chaos baby knights, and their big knights just aren't much to write home about. It's so weird that knights are bad. You'd think knights would be amazing because 10th edition is the edition of vehicles and monsters, and so by all accounts knights should be dominating. I think there are two reasons why they're not. Firstly, the big knights, when one of them goes down, it's a huge chunk of your army gone. So if you've got 4 big knights in your army, you're going the traditional knight build, every single time you lose one, you lose 25% of your army. And so and that's not just, it's 25% of your army, it's 25% of your ability to do objectives like secondaries and stuff. It's 25% of your firepower, and the problem is that every knight that goes down creates a bit of a cascading effect because it allows your opponent to concentrate even more on the remaining ones. So let's say you've got enough firepower to kill a knight and a half a turn. First turn you only kill 1 knight, but the second turn you've already injured 1 knight, and there's not as many of them for you to deal with, and maybe you've got more firepower, more things that can concentrate, more line of sights have opened up, and so next time you take 2 knights down. Losing a knight, and frankly, the problem is that people to this day, experienced or semi-experienced tournament players, anyone worth their salt, I'm not taking the piss out of newer players here. This is a hard lesson that everyone learns, and everyone learns it the first time they play against knights. But anyone who's played against knights once, from that point on, knows they build their list with enough anti-tank to kill a knight a turn. And you ask yourself, can I kill a knight a turn on this list? And if the answer is yes, then you've got enough anti-tank. And if you can't, then you haven't got enough anti-tank. And so the problem is that that's been a rule since like 6th edition. Can you kill a knight a turn? People aren't even needing to play the games now. I've watched it before, isn't necessarily true. People aren't even having to play the games now to learn that. People will go online and say, oh, I built this, what do you think? And people will say to them, it's good, but you haven't got enough firepower to kill 1 knight a turn. And they go, oh, what do you mean? Said, build it just like I'm telling you guys now. And then people learn it. They learn it second hand, third hand, fourth hand. The problem with the big knights is each one that you lose is crippling. Outside of Eldar, they probably did need to let the game breathe a little bit. Some knee-jerk reactions were made. Amazingly, the guard got a knee-jerk reaction in a nice way, which was good. But there were some knee-jerk reactions that were made, and I feel like Imperial Knights, it's kind of been... They've been holding, and I think they've started to slip. So that's why... That is my theory on why I think Imperial Knights are doing a bit shit. Chaos Space Marines continue to fall. And they've been falling for a while now. It doesn't seem like they're coming out of this tailspin. Now, I have probably somewhat arrogantly in the past said, oh, just mechanize up. Maybe that advice still works. It worked for Death Guard. The problem I'm finding is whenever I see people talking about Chaos Space Marines, do you know what they're still talking about? And I hate saying this because I feel like I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm not a Chaos Space Marine player. This can always be disregarded, of course, if you know better. Do you know what some of the top comments were? Oh, well, Terminators just don't do anything anymore. And I'm like, so what should... So you should not take the Abaddon Terminator blob, right? And the next comment, I didn't say it, but I'm thinking to myself, and then scroll down to the next comment, it's like, yeah, GW just needs to undo the nerfs to Terminators. It's like, yeah, get another one. Exactly, HV. It's another one for the bingo. They're still talking about this fucking Abaddon brick. That's what they're still going for. The best Chaos Space Marine army that I've seen. Oh, and they're still talking about Possessed. Why are you running? Why are you running Possessed across maps thinking that they're gonna get there? In no edition of 40k. Okay, I'm exaggerating slightly, but rarely in the history of competitive 40k since the Great Reset of 8th edition has running an infantry unit, no matter how fucking good it is, across the board worked out. By and large, running infantry across the board, elite infantry like that, hasn't worked. All right, so Chaos Space Marines, stop clutching onto your Abaddon brick. People are having success outside of it. Be brave. You can do it. Buy a fucking Rhino. All right, it's not expensive. You can fucking get them off eBay from someone who painted them when they were 5 years old, and it's covered in fucking finger paint and nail polish. But hell, it's still a legal model. You can buy it like a $5, shove it into your list, and start doing better. There you go. So, oh no, Garda in the bottom 3. Oh no, call an ambulance. Call an ambulance. But not for me. This is exactly what I predicted. Send me to the black ships. Let me diddle the golden throne. Did I not say that this was going to happen? I said that as people jump onto guard, and that's a lot of fucking guard players right there, that the win rate was going to go. I said that would happen. I said because guard is not a high skill faction, it's a high experience faction. So people are going to have to get the shit pushed in and have to get basically smashed for the first 10 games, and then you'll see the win rate going. It's going to be a roller coaster, and every time guard's going to get good, you get a new lot of people, and it's going to go down again. And then this is the guard win rate for the foreseeable future. Lots of peaks, lots of troughs. Lots of peaks, lots of troughs. That's what it's going to be like. We still got 100 fucking wins. As a faction, 100 victories were achieved. That is no mean feat. That is no just as a raw number. That is something like, okay, so we can win a game or 100. Now we won 100 out of 246 games, which is why we have a 41% win rate, which is why it looks like we're going down. But that's not the number you want to be looking at. This is the number you want to be looking at. 7 people went 4-1 or better with guard, and in fact, one person won an event this weekend with them. Why is this so low? And yet we're seeing lots of people do very well with guard, and them even able to win a big event. What's going on? Guard are in the ascendancy in terms of popularity, and so you're getting a lot of people jumping on the faction. They've seen some high profile cases where people have won super majors with this faction. For example, David Gaylard from the Fireside podcast said that they were S tier, and that he went, I think, and won 2 tournaments with them. One was a 160 person super major. People heard about this. I went, oh, Guard are clearly S tier. Guard can win super majors. Let's go. And what they've done is they've probably bought a whole bunch. They probably bought a whole bunch of different guard models, or they're trying a whole bunch of different guard models out, and they're not winning games. And that's because when you play guard, they're not a high skill faction. I would never say guard are a high skill faction. If I can play them, they're not a high skill faction. I play a lot of games at 40k, but I'm never going to be one of those people that's going to win a super major. It's never going to happen unless guard's so fundamentally broken. And if they are, then someone who's better than I am, I can't even speak English, who's better than I am, will be on the faction and beat me. Okay, that's a fact of life. Okay, I'm a happy mid-table RTT GT I'm a happy, kind of player, and maybe I'm happy to podium at RTT. I'm happy to get into the top 10 of a GT, And, you know, super majors and that, I'm just happy as long as I come away with the positive win rate. That's kind of it, right? What I can tell you right now, though, is that Guard are a high practice army. Because we've got so many data sheets. And to some people, they look at a Catachan and they look at Acadian and they're like, well, it's the same thing, right? 20 infantry, 20 infantry. Not realizing that the Catachans are 5 points cheaper, or 10 points cheaper than a 20-man blob, and better. Infantry isn't infantry. If you turn up to if you could take 2 Guard armies on the surface, they look identical. You've got, you know, 80 infantry, 4 tanks, 2 artillery pieces, and some command blobs. And when people first get into the Guard, I always give them this bit of advice. You will lose your first 10 games. In a funny sort of way, you should aim to lose your first 10 games. Stress test things. Go into every game with no stakes whatsoever. Go into every game just being like, today I'm running my 20 Guardsmen as Cadians. And the next game you go, today I'm running my 20 Guardsmen as Catachans. And you just try, and then you go, that worked. That didn't. And after 10 games, losing your first 10 games, suddenly it'll click into place. And then you'll start winning. You won't win every game, but then you'll start winning. That's what the Guard win rate's going to do. If the Guard win rate ever, like, and I mean like ever, for like consistently goes above 50%, I'll be amazed. It will stay low to mid 40s. No matter how good the faction is, it'll stay low to mid 40s. That's what will happen. Tyranids. Good numbers. Okay amount of wins. 41% win rate. 6 people went the distance. Pretty much as many as Guard did proportionally. But no one brought home the gold. Let's look at the different detachments. One guy went 5-1 with Assimilation Swarm. Absolute mad lad. Unending Swarm is seeing some fucking play. Look at that. Unending Swarm. 6 people took Unending Swarm. And they had a 52% win rate with 2 of the people going the distance. I'm telling you, man. Unending Swarm is good. Unending Swarm is very, very good. We've then got Vanguard Onslaught, which is basically in a holding pattern. It doesn't kill you. You don't kill it until you do kill it, and then you table it. 44% win rate, but not surprising that no one's able to go more than 3 and 2 with it. Synaptic Nexus, doing pretty well. 6 players. 43% win rate is okay. 2 people managing to go 4 and 1 with it. Good. And then we get to Invasion Fleet. People are still sticking with the Invasion Fleet. Do you know what I think it is? Fear. Tyranid Invasion Fleet players are like Chaos Space Marine players. Too afraid to try something new. They're comfy. They know the Invasion Fleet. They know it. And yet, week in, week out, we see shitloads of people take Invasion Fleet. And they say to us, well, I take it because it actually lets me hurt vehicles. But does it, though? Obviously not. If it did, you wouldn't have the most players and yet only 1 person managing to go the distance. We keep seeing people take Invasion Fleet. We keep seeing Invasion Fleet middling. I mean, 36 is a bit of a downer. Invasion Fleet is a safety blanket. You take Invasion Fleet because you know that you're going to go to a tournament and you're going to go 3 and 2. Maybe on a good day, you'll go 4 and 1. Maybe on a bad day, you'll go 2 and 3. But you're never going to get whitewashed, or you're rarely going to get whitewashed. You're rarely going to only win, like, you know, you're rarely going to win 0-1 games. You're always going to get a couple of wins in your belt, maybe one day 1, maybe one day 2, and you can go home and you can be like, yeah, didn't get smashed. And that's fine. That's fine. But you'll never go 5-0. You know how? Because it's never gone fucking 5-0. It's in like 2024. People on busy weeks are moving to the factions, but there's such an overwhelming. You add all of the other ones up, it doesn't even match Invasion Fleet. People are just sticking with that Invasion Fleet, man. Moving on, we've got Space Wolves. Space Wolves, the story is same as last week. Their win rate's a little all up and down the place. Last week they were doing really, really well. This week they're going down. They're a little all over the place. They've got okay player numbers for a unique chapter. 42% win rate is fine, but this was a bad week for them. No one went the distance. Now, last week, Space Wolves did amazingly. Yeah, so last week, Space Wolves looked really good. But remember, last week was a very, very quiet week. And I did say to you guys, when you get quiet weeks, you get weird results. Gladius Task Force is fine. People are doing okay with it, but no, 2 people went 5. And they've got like a 50% win rate. But really, Space Wolves, it's all about the Stormlands. And the Stormlands are doing okay. But it's a pressure list. It's a pressure list. And we've seen this with Orcs. We've seen this with different factions before. Space Wolves are just the latest in a long line of factions which think that they are the first people to come up with the concept of rushing people down. But the problem with pressure lists is it leads to short-term rises, but long-term it won't fit. It's not a viable solution. And that's because pressure lists only have one trick up their sleeve. And the more people face that trick in any form, in any guise, they get the handle of it. They're like, oh, I know what this is going to do. It's going to run up me and try and keep me busy for like 3 turns. By the time I've killed everything, I'm so far behind on points. So people get used to the target priority. Last time I faced Space Wolves, it caught me out with like this like surge move it could do on this one unit, blah, blah, blah. And so next time they face it, they just go and blow it off the table. I expect that Stormlands will continue to perform fine. I expect that Space Wolf players will continue leaning into the Stormlands. I expect that Wolf Jail is going to still be a totally viable tactic for them, and it will continue to do so. But I'm not convinced, as we're seeing on these bigger weeks, that Stormlands is going to win them any super majors or majors anytime soon. Could be wrong. And I'd never say any, won't win them many, because there's always an exception to prove the rule. Some guy goes nuts, manages to get the perfect run and win the biggest event of the year with Space Wolves. It can happen, right? But I don't expect it to yield. What I expect Stormlands to do and Space Wolves to do is to be a consistent 3-2 faction. Holy fuck, man! Can it be true? Are we seeing Deathwatch turn this franchise around? This is very nice to see. 12 Deathwatch players. I don't know, maybe we need to take that DNR notice off the faction. 12 players, maybe we need to take that DNR notice off the faction. 44% win rate. Now, no one went 4-1. No one won a tournament with them. But there's a bit of warm. There's a bit of maybe it's a death rattle. I don't know. And this is not the first time that we have seen Deathwatch not at the bottom. But this is the second week in a row when they've not been clearly the bottom faction. And the second or third week in a row when they've had more than, they've had half decent, for them, player numbers. Do I expect it to last? Honestly, I don't know. Is it cool seeing Deathwatch? I didn't hear no bell. Do you know what I mean? Yes. Will it last? Wait and see. Maybe something's been discovered. Maybe something's happening. Or maybe Deathwatch give themselves a little pep talk. With one voice we cried out, we will not go silently into the night. We will not go out without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today is our purging day. Dark Elder. Well, 2 people didn't get the memo that Real Space Raiders is a giant bag of dog shit and somewhat let the side down, unfortunately. But for the actual Dark Elder players running Sky Splinter Assault, things are looking very normal, very nice. Dark Elder are continuing to hold in a fairly reliable pattern. The Sky Splinter Assault force is the vast majority of the players. And that 45% win rate is a little bit below what we saw last week. Dark Elder are continuing to hover around the mid 40s, mid to upper 40s. Occasionally they break into 50%. The one takeaway I would have from this is last couple of weeks, especially last week, we saw Dark Elder doing okay. This week we've had a busy week. And they've fallen down a little bit. If I was to add something new to these sort of meta-analysis and not to say the same shit every week, my take would be that Sky Splinter Assault has fixed a lot of issues for the Dark Elder. And a lot of people are enjoying it, and they're getting some good results, and it's brought in a lot of new blood, and seeing this many Dark Elder players is fantastic. Really, really healthy community there. Love it. And there's a real chance that they're suffering a little bit from like the guard paradox, where a lot of players have heard the Dark Elder are good again. They've started using Sky Splinter Assault, and it's starting to cause the win rate to go down a little bit. But actually, you know, they can do well and they go 4-1. Sky's result is good, but not great. On a quiet week, in a local GT, Sky Splinter Assault might go 4-1. But in the big leagues, in the majors and super majors, it struggles to get there. So it depends. So I think you can say that Dark Elder right now are a solid RTT faction. They're a solid GT faction. But I think when you start getting up to 6 rounds, 80 to 100 players or more, I think they go from being a 4-1 to a 3-2 consistently. World Eaters are in a really funny place right now. A lot of their... So the last few times that I played World Eaters, it's felt not like I am playing Codex World Eaters. It feels like I'm playing Codex Angron. And it feels like Angron runs around going, look at me, look at me, look at me. He's like a distraction Primarch, right? So he's a distraction demon Primarch. He runs around going, shoot me, 22-inch charge range, we're going to fuck you bum, you know, all this kind of stuff. And you spend so much time like killing Angron, and then you look around, and the rest of this is really not doing anything. The 8-bound are, they're a bit scary, but they're basically slightly fast, slightly choppy, not as durable, but kind of as durable Terminators. Okay. And Berserkers are just, at the end of the day, their Marine equivalent. It kind of feels like World Eaters, you know, you kill Angron, he doesn't come back, because it's actually quite hard for him to come back if you know what you're doing to counter them. And then they sort of just like a flan in an oven, they just go, poof. I suspect there's a couple of things going on with World Eaters right now. I suspect they are in the late stages of their pressure evolution, like Orcs. Orcs are doing better this week, but Orcs, you know, they... and a lot of pressure lists, as we've said, they give you that short-term gain, and then the efficacy starts going down because people start adapting. So that could be what's happening with World Eaters. They are one-trick pony. Angron backed up by a bunch of shit that scores objectives. Jackals, stay on, get you some more blood tithe. World Eaters, the guy that gets you blood tithe, ride that. It's one trick, and people have been facing that trick for 8 months now. So they're kind of working it out. The other possibility is Custodes. They're yin and yang. One cannot live whilst the other survives. They're Voldemort and Harry Potter. That's what they are. Whenever Custodes are in ascendancy, World Eaters are in descendancy. And right now, Custodes are in ascendancy. And ever since the Custodes pain train went full speed ahead, poured into town, World Eaters have been down. Obviously, World Eaters still have some potential. There's some people that are going 4-1 with them. But it's been a long ass while. I can't remember, and it's probably does an indictment of my memory more than anything else. I can't remember World Eaters on a busy weekend last won an event. That's the problem that Space Wolves have into them. That's the problem that World Eaters have into them. That's the problem that Orcs have into them. Custodes, because they cuckold multiple factions. And I think that's what's happening to World Eaters. I think it's a combination of the two. The rise of the Custodes and the loss of potency to their one trick. Orcs having they've stabilized a little bit. They were in a tailspin. For a little bit there. We were seeing Orcs really, hitting bottom 3. We were seeing Orcs flirting with 30% win rates. I'm not sure if they ever quite got down there, but they really did. We've seen Orcs fluctuate and then kind of stabilize into this, sort of bottom mid position. Good player numbers with 38 player numbers. Good showing from the Orcs. Able to get a decent amount of wins under the belt. And they even had 2 people go at least 4-1. And one person went the distance and actually won the whole fucking thing. They won a local GT. Fuck it though. Either he beat that Custodes player or he just fucking edged him out. So yeah, that's kind of what I would expect. That's kind of what I expect from Orcs right now. I'm not aware of, but correct me down in chat if I'm wrong, any particular innovations in the Orc community. He was edging the Custodes. I'm not aware of any particular innovations in the Orc community. What I think is they've managed to pull out the tailspin a little bit, and with a good run in a local meta, they are able to go the distance. I think that they struggle in the really big events though, when you can't avoid Custodes, when you can't avoid those hard counters to you. The big question is, what will the Codex do? I know the Orc Codex is coming out soon, TM, but right now, Orcs need that Codex desperately. because they've only got one tactic and they've been doing that tactic 8 months. It's getting stale for them. It's getting stale for people facing them. My hope for the Orc Codex is not that it will make them any more powerful or any worse or anything like that. Frankly, I hope it doesn't make them super duper OP or anything like that. My hope for the Orc Codex is it gives them variety. I hope that shooty Daka Orcs can be a 3-2 army. I hope that Green Tide can be a 3-2 army. I hope that going full Speed Freaks can be a 3-2 army. I hope that Hybrid Orcs, nice balanced Hybrid Orcs, can be a 3-2 army. I just want them to have all the different varieties so that when I turn up against an Orc player in a tournament, I don't know what he's bringing. Because for the last 8 months, I've been able to come every single time I face Orcs in tournament, and it hasn't been a tournament I haven't faced them. It's got to the point now where my opponent says, do you want me to take you through my list? And I go, no need, let me guess. And I've been able to guess within 90% every single time. All I want is variety. I want to face off against an Orc player and I have a fucking clue what it does. I have a big grin on my face, all this wacky shit happens, and I'm just learning new shit. That's what I want to see. Dark Angels. Dark Angels, same shit. 24 players. On the surface, the faction looks like it's only got a 47% win rate. Which is actually a very respectable win rate, let's be real here. It's fine. The issue is that actually Dark Angels are doing much better than that. There's so many random shitty factions that people are trying out, but really, detachments people are trying out, but really it comes down to Ironstorm Spearhead. Dark Angels are not using Deathwing. Dark Angels are not using Ravenwing. Dark Angels are taking Ironstorm Spearhead. You're playing Greenwing. Greenwing is where it's all at with the Dark Angels. You want tanks, you want dreadnoughts. That's what you want, baby. And clearly Dark Angels players know this because over half of them are taking good detachments. There's a good detachment, and it's 55% win rate with Ironstorm, and we're seeing that every week, in and out every week. Yeah, as I say every week with Dark Angels, if you wanted to play Dark Angels, then you would be mistaken to pick up the Dark Angels Codex. Every single one of their interesting detachments, dog shit. Unforgiven Task Force. One guy went 1 and 5. Inner Circle Task Force, 15% win rate. Company of Hunters. This guy got completely fucking whitewashed. There's not much more to say here. Same shit, different week. Dark Angels aren't Dark Angels. Dark Angels are Green Marines right now. Death Guard. Oh, moving on to happier times. I do love me Death Guard. And my Death Guard love me. And Nurgle loves his children. And right now, Nurgle's doing great. 53 players. That's such a healthy number. That makes them the third most played faction. 126 victories out of 266 games played. Clearly, there's some scope for people to do very well with them. 2 people went 4-1, and 1 person went the distance, and they won an event. Really solid input from the Death Guard. And they're just doing the same shit they've always been doing. A couple of, Plague Means and Rhinos, baby. Death Guard were the first faction to wake up and smell the Prometheum and start mechanizing. And it has done them a world of good. Let's have a look. Death Guard, 60-player event. 5 rounds, 5-0. There isn't many innovations in the Death Guard playbook, but to be clear, they're not a one-trick pony. I ran my own little variation of a Death Guard army, which was 2 Land Raiders and 2 Rhinos. It's filled with Plague Marines, and it worked really, really well. Really, really well. So yeah, Death Guard, doing fine. Nice place, nice variation, nice mix with tactics. Plague Marines, in my mind, are still one of the best units in the game. Do you know what? To add something new into it, Death Guard have just got solid data sheets. You look at them, you look at the characters, and they're cheap, and they add nice benefits. If you want choppy Terminators, you got them. You want shoot Terminators, you got them. None of their rules are overly bad. They're all all the abilities are generally good. Death Guard remind me a lot of Imperial Guard, They are fundamentally, foundationally strong because their data sheets are foundationally robust. They're never going to sink completely down into the shitter because they do have just fundamentally all right, half decent data sheets. Not everyone's perfect, but they're okay. So Black Templars right now are probably the strongest Marine faction. Like, loyalist Marine faction. There are some, they go up and down a bit, but they're generally the strongest faction. 35 players is very healthy numbers. 84 wins is very impressive. 8 players going 4-1. Really, really good out of 37. That's more than Guard with about a third of the numbers. Quarter of the numbers, something like that. 47% win rate, 52% average. One person going the distance, winning a tournament. 44 player, 5-round event. The issue with Templars, they are starting to fall a little bit down the Ironstorm Spearhead. They're starting to crutch on Ironstorm Spearhead. Every week we see the majority of their players take Righteous Crusaders. Every single fucking week. Majority of their players take Righteous Crusaders. And yet it is never the detachment that gets them the best results. We see Gladius Templars every week doing very well, but Ironstorm does the best. Basically, there are 2 schools of thought. There are 2 camps in the Templar community right now. There are Black Templar players who are stubborn and crotchety and grognardy, and we love them to bits, who are like, I'm going to play the Black Templar detachment because I play Black Templars. I'm a Black Templar player. And these are the people that model every single unit exquisitely with chain. They take all the non-Black Templar models and they get the right shoulder pads for them and they paint them with so that, the red shoulder, the red outlines for the assault troops and the gold outlines for command and all this kind of stuff. They go all the extra mile on it and they literally get little fine chains and make chains for the weapons. And they are Black Templar players through and through. And then there is the other camp, and I'm not lambasting them by the way, who are players who happen to be using Black Templars. These are people which know that Black Templars really benefit from Ironstorm Spearhead, and Ironstorm Spearhead really benefits from Black Templars because of all the free melters and stuff, multi-melters. And so these players, not only are they using what is probably the stronger detachment, they also probably have a slightly more competitive mindset. So as a double doozy, you're seeing this attachment do very, very well for Black Templars. So that's the 2 camps that I experienced. And Gladius Task Force is for those Johnny Rambos that they kind of fall into this camp, but they like to try and do their own thing. They're trying something different. Space Marines! Solid in multiple areas. So 40 players. Space Marines always have about 40 players, don't they? So really just fucking solid community. Space Marines 40 players, 98 wins out of 206 games played. 6 people with basic ass bitch Space Marines going 4-1 or only dropping 1 game. It's great to see. Shame no one quite clinched it and got the goal, but it's good to see that we've got the good old basic Space Marine. Your Ultramarines, Pearl Fists, Salamanders, those kind of people. That's just all the successor chapters. I would say Size the Emperor, but they're dead. But you know what I mean? Just your basic Marines, your Codex Marines have got some play in them. And in a big week as well. Now, a big proportion of those players are leaning on the Ironstorm Spearhead. 14 players, 37 wins, 4 people, 2/3 of the people that went the distance using that detachment, 52% win rate, great time. Good, Ironstorms are strong. And everything I've said about this, I've already said elsewhere. This is what puts some tickle in my pickle. We keep seeing people using the Firestorm Assault Force, and they keep getting good results. They're not going better than 3-2. Okay, no one's going 4-1 with them, but people are trying Firestorm out, and they're able to go 3-2, 2-3. It's nice. It's got some legs. And then this is the one that it's so interesting. People wanked off Vanguard Spearhead when it was first announced. Then they all jumped. Then they tried it for a bit, and it worked. Then they jumped, and then they sort of just all left for Ironstorm. It's great to see that it's a bit like retro fashion. We're seeing Vanguard Spearhead come back, turn the franchise around. Nice, and it's clearly got some legs because there's a lot of players jumping on it, and that one person even went 4-1, and overall 50% win rate. You've got some wacky factions, like some absolute Chad tried out the first company task force. Some Chad tried out Stormlands and forgot that he wasn't playing Space Wolves. These 8 Gladius task force players, I would imagine are not all. Obviously, one guy did well with it, but a lot of them will be inexperienced. They'll be like, they've got the first 2,000 points together, played a few practice games with the mates. They've gone to a local GT, and they just use Gladius because that's what they've trained on. Yeah. Pete Jobson. Yeah, +1 strength within 12 inches and all weapons of assault, so they can move and shoot. It's very maneuverable, which is what's giving it some legs. So hilarious story with demons this week. So the general story, they are a 3-2 faction. They're a 4-1 faction, but they can't win a tournament. Every single week, demons have the same story. Good player numbers, really solid number of core wins, and about a 50% win rate. And loads, someone every week manages to go 4-1. Never quite seal the deal. Until, praise be to the dark gods. Praise be. They've only gone and fucking done it. They've won an event, right? Someone went 5-0, right? Wrong. I saw this earlier. They won the event and they went 4-1. They went 4 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw. I think that's what happened. And so they won it because they had, even though they didn't win every game, out of everyone who won 4 games, they had the most points. So that is hilarious. The fact that demons finally managed to get a tournament win, and they did it on a 4-1. Yeah, demons are in a solid place right now. They still have Be'lakor. They've got great variety in units, and they have but they're still generally leading into that one playstyle of Monster Mash. Monster Mash, as we're seeing with a lot of factions, bit of a safety blanket, bit of a one trick. Have you noticed, guys, that the majority of factions seem to have one trick? And sometimes there's a little bit of a spin on that trick, but it's one trick. I've noticed that about 10th edition. It feels like Games Workshop, and I'm not complaining about this whatsoever, it feels like the GW balance team is like, okay, fuck it, right? We're not going to try and make every faction varied and interesting. If the players are going to do that. If a player wants to make an interesting army, they're going to fucking do it. It's our job as the balance team to give this faction, at the very least, one way to win games. And once GW's got that viable build, right, fuck it, next faction. What could be the next faction's viable build for that one? What's that one thing they can do? And they do, and they're getting every faction to this point, and then they're releasing codexes, which still have 1 or 2 viable builds, but now they've added a bit more flavor in there for those Johnny Rambos that want to do something else. Tau. Now, my understanding is that Tau are still an index faction right now. I think the Tau Codex is out, but it's not been FAQ'd, so no tournaments are allowing it yet. Kind of like what happens, this seems to be a common thing with a lot of codexes these days. Here's your brand new codex, but you're not allowed to use it. Fucking get it in there. Is there anything in the Tau Codex that's massively broken that's going to fuck everyone over? We've seen, maybe. Does GW do an FAQ for every codex? I suppose they do. The takes on Tau right now, it's difficult to comment because it is very much like the last days, the last twilight of the index. The Tau meta these days is 2 or 3 Riptides, big unit or 2 of Crisis Suits, some dude who's the exemplar of the Kion, and Tetras. That's it. That's your Tau build. Tetras, Riptides, Crisis Suits. There's a bit of, obviously they then season it with other bits and bobs, but generally speaking, you want to win with Tau, with the current build, with the current index. That's the way to go for it. And it's doing very well for them. As we have commented many times, GW seem to have pushed Tau to essentially be Xenos Guard. They're very cheap, they're very spammable, they're very shooty. And yeah, they tend to outnumber the fuck out of people right now. Oh, Breaches and Devilfish. Yeah, they're a big one as well. Yeah, Tau right now play very similarly to Guard, which makes me feel very uncomfortable, I'm not going to lie. We've then got Grey Knights. Grey Knights have seen a resurgence since the Dread Knights got unfucked. And boy, have they seen a resurgence. That player count just keeps going up and up and up and up. Turns out that Grey Knight players really like the baby carriers. I can't help but think that all the Grey Knight players must be like dads. And dads who love wearing like the baby carrier around. They're just, just really loving dads who've got the baby carriers. They're really into, the babies and the family and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, if I can't use my baby carriers, then I have no interest in this faction. That's what it feels like. But yeah, Grey Knights, they got their Dread Knights unfucked, and it seems like that's all that they wanted. Just let them use their Dread Knights, and they're happy. And it's done wonders for them. It has been a shot in the arm. It gives them, a bit of durability. It gives them a bit of armor, and it gives them a bit of punch. Not a lot. They're not going to win a firefight against a Tau army. They're not going to win a firefight against a Guard army. But at least they can feel good rolling some dice that aren't fucking bolters for a change. And exactly, it's the uppy downy. It's the uppy downy as well. It's the uppy downy. So Grey Knights now are very maneuverable with 2+ armor saves every fucking place in the world. And they actually have some half decent punch. As a result, it is unsurprising to me that they are basically 50%. 50% of the games that you play with the Grey Knights, you are going to encounter someone who doesn't have a huge amount of screening, bingo cards, who doesn't have a great amount of maneuverability, and who maybe isn't au fait with what Grey Knights do. And then 50% of your games, you come across a faction which does have good screening, can outshoot you, knows how to beat you. Yeah, and that's really it. And can counter your uppy downy. The Grey Knights are solid now, and they've got a bit more variety in the lists. It's nice to see. I mean, there are a lot of players that are just spamming Dread Knights, like 5 or 6 of them. Fair play. But a lot of the time what I see across the gaming hall is I see like 3 Dread Knights, and then some Terminators, and then some Strike Marines. And there's still some family favourites like Drago, throw in some Purifiers, that kind of stuff. But by and large, Grey Knights, they've got that one viable build, all of the Dread Knights. And then they've got some nice variety for those people that like to keep things interesting. Chaos Knights, or should I say Codex War Dog, it is literally, there is nothing new to say here. The difference between Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights is Chaos Knights always hit on 2s, don't have to rely upon sustained hits to get pseudo hitting on 2s and stuff like that. They just hit on 2s. So your Chaos Knights, if they're in combat, they're going to hit on 2s with the combat ones. If they're in shooting, they're going to hit on 2s with the shooting ones. They're cheap enough where you can spam the fuck out of them. They lean into the meta a little bit, but they're still not that hard to kill. Some people will be overwhelmed by the amount of armor that they bring. And they're relatively, it's a very popular army because a bit like Custodes, it's a piece of piss to collect. So why are Chaos Baby Knights doing better than Imperial Baby Knights? Because the combat ones are better than the combat Imperial Knights. Shooting ones are better than the shooting Imperial Knights. And generally, they are much more maneuverable than the Imperial Knights. And their army rules are actually, like the Bondsmen and stuff like that, their army rules are actually fucking wood. Like the... And also, there's always going to be that one... There's always going to be someone who doesn't have enough anti-tank. But and Akkotain, great point. They can ally in Nurglings, which are dirt cheap, which allow them to do secondaries. Very familiar pattern at this point. AdMech. Look, okay. I don't mean to shit on the COG boys. I don't. If on one of the busiest weeks we've had in the year so far, you can't muster more players than the fucking Death Watch, I think your faction might be dead. We spoke about this before. AdMech are the first faction that really crossed the Rubicon when it comes to GW prices. They are, in fact, they're an entire faction which has essentially been priced out. The winning AdMech list costs between $1,500 and $1,800 for one build, for one viable build, which could be invalidated in 6 months. Some people have that much money. Some people have enough. Some people can get some good deals. Some people can borrow enough models from various game groups to put it together if they're on like a team tournament or something like that. They need one AdMech player, so they all pool together. For the everyman on the street, and this is coming from a guard perspective. We're a pretty expensive faction to collect. AdMech have been priced out. So when we see them up here, and what you see here is you've got like a couple of, you've got one dude that went absolutely ape with the Explorator Maniple, which I suspect is probably a small. Over the last 3 months, they've only had 84 players. That is insane. And the guy that went 4-1 with Explorator did it at the smallest event this week. I don't mean to. Very well done to him. I'm not lambasting him, but it is also, you can't dismiss you can't dismiss the size of event. So you had 2 outliers, and then you get to the Kastari Hunter cohort. Okay, so this is what's fucked about this, all right? So that one viable AdMech build that we talked about, which is like all the Chicken Walkers, all the Skitarii, okay, costs you $1,500 to $1,800. Only works 50% of the time. You spend all of that money. These 6 people somehow got that army together in one form or another, and none of them went 4-1. They all went 3-2 and worse. That's fucking depressing. AdMech need a and you know what's really bad? There's no light at the end of the tunnel because they've had their codex. They've had it. So unless games work, which means by and large, there's only one lever for GW to pull, and that's points. And the only way they can buff the faction is to decrease the points. But that doesn't fix it. Because because that just makes the cost of the models even worse. It makes the problem with AdMech even fucking worse. That's the only thing they can do. I think AdMech, unless GW comes in with something they've never done before, which is basically a full rewrite, or changing the faction so much in the balance, changing multiple detachments so much in a balanced data slate that it's essentially a rewrite. Imagine buying your AdMech Codex and then essentially all of the detachment rules in there being like, they're wrong. We've rewritten them all. Here's a free PDF. You'd be like, why the fuck did I buy the Codex then? Blood Angels have been consistently going up. They keep on rising. I think Blood Angels are the new top Marine chapter. 2 reasons. 1, they are consistently doing well. They're not winning a tournament yet, but they're consistently doing well with many players each week going 4-1. They also are starting to have they every week after week, there's Black Templars, Blood Angels. They're going up and down like this. They're trading who's above the other one. But Blood Angels are there. 50% win rate is really good. But do you know what is the number one thing that I think makes Blood Angels the better chapter now? It's because they're not using Ironstorm Spearhead. Blood Angels are winning by playing like Blood Angels. And unlike all of these other chapters, Blood Angels are going out there with chainswords, with Death Company, and they are doing it the way Blood Angels should be doing it. These are Blood Angel players. These aren't players who happen to be using Blood Angels. These are Blood Angels players. They are smashing it. The Sons of Sanguinius, keep going. Push that detachment as hard and as fast and as far as it will fucking go. I tell you right now, man, everyone's behind you. Everyone loves seeing Marines, the different unique Marine chapters, play like they fucking should do. We're all behind you. We're all rooting for you. Even when you cave our face in, even when you chop it to pieces, we're there for you. Because you're not fucking running Ironstorm. You're running it properly. League of Votan doing really, really, really well. They keep on going up as well. It's amazing what being anti-Necron does for you. Leagues of Votann seeing a healthy number of players this month. And they're not winning any tournaments, but we're seeing them go. We're seeing them week in, week out, going X and 1. And essentially, the Leagues of Votann are a very similar spot. The build hasn't changed. 2 units of Terminators, 2 units of Exosuits, 2 to 4 Sagittars. But the more relevant that Necrons become, the more relevant that Leagues of Votann become. Because Leagues of Necrons, it's not always Catan spam. They actually do have some variation. But Necrons are basically taking 4 to 6 very powerful units in one configuration or another. And Votann go, okay, I'm just going to oath those. And then blow them off the table. So yeah, and also, generally speaking, in a meta which is still being very elite with only the occasional Horde army, like Unending Swarm, and possibly Green Tide in the future, popping up, Leagues of Votann are very good into elites. And they're particularly shite into hordes. And so when there isn't that many hordes, they're doing good. So yeah, Votann, and also they're relatively cheap, but they're not so cheap like AdMech. So yeah, Votann are in a funny spot right now where they feel kind of bullshit. A lot of their rules seem a bit janky and like a bit different. Like the Sagittars is a great example of Votann bullshit. It's like everyone else transports toughness 9 with like 11 wounds, and the Votann ones are T10 with 9 wounds. So they're resistant to all but the most anti-tank, but when you hit them, they fucking fold. Once you've faced them once, the bit like GTL Cup, once you face them once, you get the measure of them. They only have one viable build. And once you face that build, you start to unpick it. Big thank you now. Proper wanking off in, sort of 10 minutes or 5-10 minutes or so. Custodians are playing 9th edition. There are basically 2 viable Custodians builds right now. One is 6 blobs of infantry. The other is 4 blobs of infantry and 2 tanks. That's the build. Both of them basically involve taking fixed objectives, moving into the middle of the map, and just going teleport to Homer, teleport to Homer, teleport to Homer, teleport to Homer, teleport to Homer. That's it. That's all it is. Custodians are really powerful right now, and 76 players. If you go to a tournament, you're going to have to face them. If you go to a tournament, you're going to have to learn how to beat them. Some armies will just slap them about because at the end of the day, they don't have great shooting, and if you're going down the sit and just hold route with like the infantry, although it's not just sitting and holding. You do like yeet a unit of wardens at the enemy a turn. Sometimes the enemy just blows you off the table, and that's so that does work. So there are some armies that can beat that, but by and large, they're very popular right now. They have an and this is for 2 reasons. It's an unbelievably easy game plan. Once you've got it takes like 2 or 3 games, and you're like, oh, I know how to play this. It's one build, it's the same shit every game, but it's 2 games. So you play 2 or 3 games with them, and you get you know how to do the trick basically. And then so they're very easy to learn and they're very easy to collect because your army is like 30-40 models. You can get it painted in a week. You can get it painted tournament ready, battle ready in a weekend. And every week we see the player numbers go up. Every week we see the number of games go up. The number of games won go up. Every week we see the number of players going 4-1 go up. And now we're starting to see tournament wins come in. And they haven't even had their codex yet. It'll be very interesting to see if the codex makes them better or worse. Sisters! Doing great. 27 players is good for that faction. 73 wins out of 138 games. 9 sisters going 4-1, but no one going the distance. Sisters are in the same spot as Votann, which is they are anti-meta as fuck right now because they do very well into Necrons, but also they essentially They essentially have unnerfed miracle dice. Sisters of players have also seen some good success with more mechanized lists, called it. And like Votann, they're doing well because people have... At the beginning of the edition, people were really pushing like melee sisters because that's what had been so powerful in 9th, and they were just getting blown off the table. Now, sisters players have moved over to shooting, and so they're in that same spot with Votann where they have a good trick, they have good variety. There's a decent amount of different. They've got some good. They've got some decent builds. They're a surprisingly deep faction. Not a huge amount of data sheets. Basically, various differences in power armor, but they've got a couple of different jump units. They've got a couple of different light infantry units, like their sisters and their neophytes. A couple of different elite units with like their Sacrosancts and their retributors. They've got at least 2 of everything, whereas Votann have got like 1 of everything. So they've got a little bit more variety, and they're doing well. They're anti-meta, but unfortunately, being anti-meta only gets you so far. I tend to find anti-meta goes 4-1, meta goes 5-0, and that's where sisters are right now. But they do keep climbing the ladder every week, up and up and up. Big question is going to be, can they put the final piece of the puzzle in place? Oh look, a surprise to be sure, and not a welcome one. Eldar are back, and they are not going out without a fight. If you were to ask me last week if I expected to see Eldar back in the top 5, I would have said no. I would have said I would have said probably not. It could be a pivot. It could be an anomaly. It could just be a random resurgence. But with 48 players, it seems like there's 48 players, 10 of those players going 4-1, and 2 of those players going the distance. One was a 33 player, and one was the big one. Eldar winning the Alpine Cup, 166 players, 6 rounds. That's a super major. Eldar still proving they have what it takes to win an event, and not just a local GT. I'm gonna put my money out there. I think they're back. I don't know if they're like back, but I think they're back. I think it's a pivot. I don't know exactly what it is. I've heard some rumblings about Aspect Warriors being quite good. I've heard one person in the flesh say that he was surprised about how good jet bikes were. At the end of the day, Eldar are a venerable faction. That means they have a shitload of data sheets to draw upon, shitload of units to draw upon, and a shitload of experienced players. Eldar might be the exiled prince coming back to claim what is rightfully theirs. I said last week that I had heard some chit and chat around Thousand Suns unlocking some new tricks, and it seems that those are coming to fruition. So they've got a decent amount of players, and they had 9 people go 4-1. I agree with Dakota saying they do big damage, but they're not great at scoring. Magnus is carrying the faction. Magnus has got some great ways of basically getting like indirect fire, which is kind of cool. They do a huge amount of damage. They don't score better than anyone else does. Thousand Suns have had a bit of an interesting ride since the beginning of 10th. But one thing I can say about them is that they have always threatened to be near the top. Maybe now they will do. If I was Thousand Suns player, my concern would be that my army is on a bit of a linchpin, relying on Magnus. There are some other things that they could probably pivot to. They pivoted last time. They were taking all flamers. They pivoted away. Warp flame, I should say. They pivoted away. Thousand Suns are a faction which I think, for personally speaking, they always slip my mind Every edition they do something. Every edition they're not great, not terrible. And 10th edition they've been threatening to be good for a while. Gene Stealer Cult. This is a bit of an anomalous result. 6 players on a week with like 900 players. Very, 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 very low. When you've got half the players of Deathwatch, you know your faction's in the shitter. 17 wins out of 30 games, just not a lot of data. Now, this is not the first time that Gene Stealer Cult have been near the top with small players. I'm getting like Ynnari vibes from them. Like in 9th edition, there were these 2 people that played Ynnari basically every other week. Having played in GSC recently, as a faction, I would say they feel off. You're meant to be a horde army that overwhelms with numbers. But if you can, but is incredibly fragile. And they just don't feel like that right now. They've got there's like a handful of units on the table. Sometimes they come back. When they do, not a big deal. They're too expensive. Gene Stealer Cult need a fundamental rewrite. Sack off the respawning units. Literally, sack off the spawning units, cut the points by 33%. But I know it sounds insane, do it. Anything that can reach neophytes down to 5 points. Acolyte, just take everything and just cut. Get rid of the respawns and just cut it. That's how they need to be a horde of fragile dudes with shitty shooting, terrifying combat. After 3 turns, there should be a pressure army. They should be a pressure army, but with nice variety of units. So sometimes you face off against Acolytes swarming at you. Sometimes you face off against Metamorphs shooting at you, running at you. Sometimes you face off against Pure Strange running at you. Sometimes it's a mixture of everything. They should be a pressure army. They should be the pressure army. And they should be tricksy, and they should be fucky, and they should keep you off balance, and they should have at least 1 or 2 viable, the best Gene Stealer Cult ever played was 8th edition. When you could take them as Hive Cult and they were shooty, you could take them as just a Helix and they were tough. Reset the clock back to 8th edition, make them like that. That's the way to do it. Then we get to the Kings for the Dynast. They finally fucking did it. And they are the top dogs right now. If you're going to tournament, you got to face them. And it ain't just Catan spam. Catan spam is a huge part of it. But Wraiths are a big part of it as well. There's some interesting Immortal play going around. They're in a nice place right now. They have access to good army rules. They have access to good detachment rules. Many of their data sheets are fundamentally, foundationally solid, and their points are very competitive. They're perfect. They're in the sweet spot. They're in the Goldilocks zone right now. 39. So Hybrid Legion, 39 players, 109 wins, 188 games played. 12 people went 11 people went 4-1. 1 person went all the way. Canoptek Court, 34 players. Very similar numbers. It's great to see a bit of a balancing between Hive Crypt and Canoptek Court. 101 players. 34 players, 101 games played, 176. 101 games won, 176 games played. 10 people, 8 people going 4-1, 2 people going all the way. 57% win rate. And look at these results. They're settling in. 57%, 57%, 58%, 54%. They're really pretty close to the... And do not forget that you've got the mirror match here. Every time a Necron player plays a Necron player, it pulls the win rate down to close to 50%. So this win rate is artificially suppressed. With these player numbers, I think you can comfortably add on 5%. I think that's a 63% win rate this weekend. I think that is a 62%. Necrons, they need a nerf. They're a great faction. I love them. They definitely don't attract the same amount of hate as like Tau and Eldar, and in my case, Custodes. They're really powerful, but they need reining in. I heard a really, really good solution today for Hive Crypt Legion. Just don't let the Catan jump around. So simple. Don't let the Catan teleport. And give the fucking the Nightbringer a proper base size. Necrons being powerful is starting to wear thin. Because they've been powerful since before their codex came out. Catan have been a problem since before the Codex came out, and the Codex came out and it didn't fix it. So it's not like we've not been dealing with this shit for a couple of months since the Codex came out. We've been dealing with it for 8 months. So for 8 months, these guys have basically been doing this shit. Now it's just at the forefront. Now the competition's gone down the shitter. It's starting to wear a little thin. GW shouldn't wait. The meta right now is starting to settle. There's a few interesting factors in the ascendancy, but you know, I'm noticing this because I do the meta Mondays. I'm saying similar shit each week. A lever needs pulling. I think the game is big enough now where we probably need minor tweaks every 3 months, not big tweaks every 6 months. And I'm the guy that says let the game breathe a little bit here and there. I am. But I think we're now at the point where the game's been out a while. Everyone's got a good idea of what works, what doesn't work, what the general meta is, what's strong in 10th and what isn't. I think now we need lots of little fine-tuning. On that note, I'm going to say thank you. Thank you to all of you for joining today's stream. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you guys have been enjoying these regular meta-analyses. And I hope you guys have been finding them useful. I know I often describe them as just, you know, hot takes and a bit shit. And, you know, I don't know, often a lot of it is sort of theory hammer and everything. But I also hope that you are finding these takes somewhat line up with your own experiences. And at the very least, I hope you find them enjoyable and entertaining. But thank you to everyone. Thank you to all the regulars. Thank you to all the newcomers. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Thank you for watching. And of course, as always, see you guys next time. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier patrons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Wolf, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.